I've always been the invisible one in my family. The one who tried harder than anyone, only to be ignored. But that all changed one night. That night, I went from being the failure to the one who would change everything. Jessica had always been the odd one out in her family. It wasn't that she wasn't successful, it's just that her success never seemed to matter. Her parents always had a special place for her sister, Emily, the perfect daughter. Emily had everything, the looks, the charm, the perfect job. Jessica, on the other hand, had always been the one who kept her head down, did what she was supposed to, and still ended up overlooked. Emily went to prestigious universities, landed a high-paying job right after graduation, and became the golden child of the family. Jessica. Well, she had always been the quiet one, doing everything she could to avoid attention. She took a job in marketing, earning a modest $30,000 a year, while Emily's salary seemed to grow with every passing year, the kind of money Jessica could only dream of. Despite Jessica's best efforts, no matter how hard she worked, her accomplishments never seemed to compare to Emily's. Her parents always made sure to remind her of that. It wasn't blatant, no, her parents were far more subtle about it. It was the way they would nod politely when she spoke about her work, their eyes drifting over to Emily whenever she mentioned something about her job. It was the way they'd throw Emily a party for her achievements, and Jessica would get a "good job, honey," before the conversation shifted to Emily's latest success. It was the way they never took the time to ask Jessica about her goals or dreams, yet they were always interested in Emily's. That night, though, something was different. Jessica's parents had invited the family over for dinner, a regular occurrence on the weekends, but tonight was different. Tonight, Jessica had made a decision that would change everything. She'd worked hard for years, enduring the feeling of being invisible, of being the underachiever in her family, but tonight, all of that was going to change. As Jessica walked into the kitchen, her parents were sitting at the table, laughing and chatting with Emily about her latest promotion. Jessica felt a knot form in her stomach. She had always been the one to sit quietly in the background while Emily took center stage. But not tonight. "Jessica, we're so glad you could join us," her mother said, her voice sweet, almost dismissive. "I was just telling Emily how proud I am of her latest promotion. You should really try to keep up, honey." Jessica could feel her heart racing, but she didn't let it show. She had a secret she had been keeping for months, something that would finally put her on the map in her family's eyes. "Actually, Mom," Jessica began, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside her. "I've been working on something big. Something I think you'll be really proud of." Her parents turned their attention to her, their eyes curious. "What do you mean, sweetie?" her dad asked, leaning back in his chair. "Well," Jessica said, taking a deep breath, "I've just closed a deal worth $5.6 million. The room went silent. Her mother blinked in disbelief, and her father's jaw dropped. For a moment, they both just stared at her, as if they couldn't comprehend what she had just said. $5 million, her mother whispered. Jessica nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "Yes, $5 million. And I've been handling it all on my own. No help from anyone. Just me." Her parents exchanged glances, clearly trying to process the information. They had never imagined Jessica, their quiet, underachieving daughter, could land such a deal. Emily, of course, was the first to recover. "Well, that's impressive," she said, trying to sound sincere, though there was an edge of jealousy in her voice. "But you know, I've got a promotion coming up too. I'm sure it'll be even more than that." Jessica smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction she hadn't felt in years. She had done it. She had finally shown them all that she was more than just the girl with the $30,000 salary. She was capable of so much more. "Actually, Emily," Jessica said, her voice calm but firm, "this deal means I'll be able to do whatever I want. Maybe even quit my job. Maybe I'll even start my own company. Who knows?" Her parents were silent, their faces unreadable. Jessica could see the realization dawning on them. They had underestimated her for so long, and now they were forced to face the truth. their little girl, was no longer the quiet, invisible one. She had come into her own, and there was no denying it. I'm proud of you, Jessica, her father said, his voice unsteady. It was the first time in years he had said those words to her, and they felt like a weight lifting off her shoulders. Jessica smiled, but she didn't let the moment linger. Thanks, Dad, she said. But I've always known what I was capable of. You just needed to catch up. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Her parents were clearly still processing the news, while Emily sat quietly, no longer the center of attention. For the first time in years, Jessica felt like she had finally been seen. She had finally earned the respect she deserved. And as the night drew to a close, Jessica knew that everything had changed. She had taken control of her life, and there was no going back. The next morning, Jessica sat in the kitchen, sipping her coffee, trying to shake off the events of last night. The weight of what had happened still lingered, but it felt different this time. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't just a background character in her own life. She had stood up to her parents, shown them her worth, and it felt incredible. But as the sun streamed through the window, Jessica realized that this moment, this small victory, was only the beginning. It was time to take control. The phone on the counter buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a text from her best friend, Natalie. Can you talk? Jessica smiled. Natalie had been there for her throughout the years, always offering a listening ear when she felt ignored by her family. She had seen the slow buildup of frustration in Jessica's eyes, the constant battle to be seen, to be heard. Of course, Jessica replied. Call me in 5. Moments later, her phone rang. You did it, didn't you? Natalie asked, her voice full of excitement. You finally told them. Yeah, I did. It feels unreal, Jessica said, still trying to process the night before. I mean, I never thought I'd be the one to change things. But last night, I felt like everything shifted. I knew it. You're not the underdog anymore, Jessica. You've got the power now, Natalie said with pride. Jessica smiled. She had always appreciated Natalie's unwavering support. I don't know about power, but I finally got the respect I've been waiting for. My parents, they actually said they were proud of me. That's huge. So what's next? What's your plan now? Natalie asked, eager to know. Jessica paused. She hadn't fully thought this through. She had been so focused on proving herself to her family, she hadn't taken the time to think about what she truly wanted for her future. I think it's time I do something for myself. I've been putting everyone else's needs before mine for so long. Maybe it's time I take that $5.6 million deal seriously. Maybe I should start my own business, Jessica said, the idea sparking excitement in her chest. What's holding you back? Natalie asked. Honestly, nothing. I've got the resources, the confidence, I just need to take the plunge. You've got this, Jess. Just remember, you're no longer the person who's in the background. You're the one people will turn to now. Jessica leaned back in her chair, looking out the window. The sun had fully risen now, and it felt like a new day, a new chapter in her life. For so long, she had tried to be the person everyone else wanted her to be. She had lived in the shadows, trying to fit into a mold that was never hers. But now she realized she could shape her own path. Later that day, Jessica sat down at her desk, the weight of the decision she had to make settling in her mind. She opened her laptop and stared at the emails, contracts, and business plans she had accumulated over the past few months. She had been so focused on keeping everything hidden, on not drawing attention to herself, that she had never considered the full scope of what she could accomplish. But now, with the confidence she had gained from the conversation with her parents and Natalie, she knew what she needed to do. She needed to make a move. Jessica began to work, reaching out to potential investors, drafting a business plan, and aligning her vision for the future. She felt the excitement grow as she saw her dream take shape before her eyes. The next day, her parents called. It wasn't a surprise, but Jessica still felt a bit nervous. She had been prepared for this call, knowing they would want to discuss the events of the night before. When she answered, her father's voice was softer than usual. "Jessica, we've been talking," he began. "And we wanted to apologize for the way we treated you. For all those years, we didn't see you for who you were, and we regret that." Jessica felt a lump form in her throat. She had never heard her father speak this way before. "I'm glad you're seeing things differently now," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I've moved on. I'm doing something for me now." "We understand that," her mother chimed in. "And we're proud of you, Jessica. Truly. We should have supported you more." Jessica's heart warmed at her parents' words, but she knew deep down that this apology wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that she was finally doing things on her terms, without needing their validation. "I appreciate that, Mom. But I have to do this on my own," she said firmly. "This is my time." The call ended and Jessica sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on the conversation. It was nice to hear the apology, but the most important thing was that she had taken control of her life. She was no longer waiting for her family's approval, or their acknowledgement. She had created her own path, and that was worth more than any apology. As the days passed, Jessica's business began to take shape. She had the confidence now, the drive to make it happen. She wasn't just the underdog anymore. She was the one who had proven herself. And as the months went by, she saw her efforts pay off in ways she never imagined. Her parents, while still trying to find their place in her new life, began to support her in their own way. But it wasn't about them anymore. It was about Jessica. And she was finally the one in control. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind for Jessica. What had started as a quiet act of rebellion against years of overlooked potential was now blossoming into something far greater than she ever imagined. Her new business was gaining traction, the deals were rolling in, and her confidence was skyrocketing. Yet, the most rewarding part wasn't the success itself, it was the recognition of her own worth. The world had finally caught up to Jessica, but more importantly, she had caught up with herself. She no longer felt invisible, no longer felt like she was standing on the sidelines of her own life. It was a Sunday afternoon when her parents called again. This time, Jessica felt prepared. They wanted to check in, to see how things were going. "Hi, Jess," her father's voice crackled through the phone. "How's everything? We've been thinking about you a lot." "Things are going great, Dad," Jessica replied, a smile creeping across her face. "I've been working hard, but it's paying off. We can tell. Your mother and I have been talking, and we're proud of you, Jess. Really proud." The words, though unexpected, felt different this time. There was no sarcasm, no subtle dismissal. Her parents were finally seeing her for who she was, a strong, capable woman who had built something from the ground up. "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot," she said, keeping her voice steady, though the emotion behind her words was undeniable. As the conversation continued, Jessica realized something important. Her parents, for all their past mistakes, were finally starting to understand the person she had become. They weren't just acknowledging her success, they were starting to appreciate her in ways they never had before. The following month, Jessica's business reached a new milestone. She secured a partnership with a major firm that would significantly boost her brand's presence. The deal was worth millions, but for Jessica, it was more than just the financial gain. It was the validation she had been craving her entire life. She had done this on her own, without anyone's help or approval. She had become the success story she had always dreamed of. On the day the contract was finalized, Jessica called her parents again, this time to share the news herself. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice brimming with excitement, "I just secured a major partnership. This is a huge step forward for the business." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "That's amazing, sweetheart," her mother finally said, her voice warm with pride. We're so happy for you. We knew you could do it, her father added. You always had it in you. Hearing those words felt like a weight had been lifted from Jessica's shoulders. She wasn't just the daughter who had to fight for attention anymore. She was the daughter who had earned her place, who had proven herself to the people who mattered most. That evening, as Jessica sat in her office, reflecting on everything that had happened, she realized how far she had come. She had spent so many years wondering if she was enough, if she would ever live up to the expectations of her family. But now, she saw things clearly. She had done it, not for her parents, not for anyone else, but for herself. She had proven her worth to the world, and most importantly, to herself. She was no longer the quiet, overlooked daughter. She was a businesswoman, a force to be reckoned with, and she was ready for whatever came next. The next few months were a blur of meetings, deals, and growth. Jessica's company flourished, and with each new success, she grew more confident, more comfortable in her own skin. She had created something that was entirely her own, something that reflected her hard work, her determination, and her resilience. And as she continued to build her empire, Jessica knew that she had finally found her place in the world. Her parents, while still trying to navigate this new dynamic, began to support her in ways they never had before. They respected her decisions, admired her strength, and even started to ask for her advice on business matters. Jessica's relationship with them was still evolving, but it had shifted in a way that felt right. She no longer felt like she had to prove herself to them. She had already done that. And as for Emily, her sister, things were different too. Jessica had always looked up to Emily, admired her for the success she had achieved. But now, Jessica saw things in a new light. She wasn't jealous of Emily anymore. She wasn't comparing herself to her. Jessica had carved her own path, and that path was uniquely hers. In the end, it wasn't about the money or the success. It was about the journey, the growth, and the empowerment that came with finally owning her worth. Jessica had always been enough. She just had to believe it. And now, the world believed it too. As the months passed, Jessica found herself more confident than ever. Her business was thriving, and her personal life had found a balance she never thought possible. Yet, despite all her success, a small part of her still wondered if she had truly earned her place in the world. She had spent so many years feeling like the underdog, struggling to be seen, and now that she had achieved everything she had set out to do, she couldn't shake the thought that maybe it had all happened too quickly. One evening, as Jessica sat in her office reviewing contracts, her phone buzzed with a message from her father. It was a simple message, just a few words. "We're proud of you, Jessica." Jessica stared at the screen for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. It wasn't the first time her parents had expressed their pride in her, but this time it felt different. This time, it felt genuine. For so long, she had been the one trying to prove herself to them, trying to get their approval. But now, it seemed that they had finally come to realize who she truly was. She wasn't just their daughter anymore, she was someone who had built something on her own, someone who had taken control of her destiny. A week later, her parents invited her to dinner. Jessica had hesitated at first. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face them, to navigate the new dynamic that had formed between them. But after some thought, she decided it was time. It was time to sit down with them as equals. When Jessica arrived at the restaurant, her parents were already seated, waiting for her. There was an unfamiliar air of warmth between them, a quiet acknowledgement of the changes that had taken place. "Jessica," her mother said, her voice softer than usual. "It's been a while. How are things going?" Jessica smiled, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. "Things are great, Mom. The business is doing well. I'm finally in a place where I can really focus on what I want." Her father nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "We've been following your progress. It's impressive, Jessica." The words were simple, but they held so much weight. For the first time, it felt like they saw her, not as the daughter they had always tried to fix or mold, but as the woman she had become. The conversation flowed easily, filled with genuine curiosity and pride. They talked about her business, her plans for the future, and even her personal life. It was as though the years of tension had melted away, replaced by a newfound respect. As the night wore on, Jessica felt herself relaxing. The anxiety she had once felt around her parents was slowly fading. It wasn't that she needed their approval anymore. No, she had long since learned that her worth wasn't tied to their opinions. But it was nice, in a way, to finally have them see her as she truly was. After dinner, as they walked out of the restaurant, her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Jessica," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know we've made mistakes in the past, but I see now that you've always had what it takes." Jessica's heart swelled at his words. This was the moment she had been waiting for, no longer seeking validation, but finally receiving it. It wasn't about the money, the deals, or the success. It was about the recognition, the acknowledgement that she had fought so hard to earn. "Thank you, Dad," she said softly. "That means more to me than you'll ever know." As she drove home that night, Jessica reflected on everything she had accomplished. She had built a life she was proud of, a life that was all her own. Her journey had been long and full of challenges, but every step had led her to this moment. She wasn't just the daughter trying to find her place anymore. She was a woman who had claimed her space in the world, who had fought for everything she had, and who had earned her place at the table. The next day, as Jessica sat in her office, reviewing the latest round of contracts, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She was no longer the quiet, overlooked daughter. She was the woman in charge, the one making the decisions, the one who had built something meaningful. And as she moved forward, she knew that nothing, not even her past, could take that away from her. She had finally stepped into her power, and she wasn't going back. Her journey wasn't over, but for the first time, Jessica felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the months went by, Jessica found herself adjusting to the new rhythm of her life. Her business was flourishing, and the recognition she had been seeking for years was finally hers. Yet, despite the external success, a quiet sense of uncertainty still lingered in the back of her mind. She had proven her worth to everyone, her parents, her colleagues, even to herself, but now, she wondered what was next. The idea of personal growth had always been tied to her professional success, but now that she had achieved what she had always dreamed of, Jessica found herself yearning for something more. She wanted to deepen her relationships, make genuine connections, and start living a life that wasn't just about work and accomplishments. It was a Sunday afternoon when Jessica decided it was time for a change. She sat down at her kitchen table, her coffee cup still warm in front of her, and made a list. "What do I want next?" she wrote at the top of the page. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about deals or contracts. She wasn't focused on growing her business or impressing others. Instead, she thought about what truly mattered to her. She had always been a workaholic, pouring every ounce of energy into her career, but now, she knew that she wanted more balance. She wanted to make time for the people she cared about, to invest in her personal life as much as her professional one. And so, she made a decision. She would start taking weekends off, truly disconnecting from work, and use that time to connect with herself and her loved ones. Over the next few weeks, Jessica started to feel the shift. The first weekend off was strange. She had always felt the pressure to keep pushing, to keep achieving. But as she spent time with friends, taking long walks, and sitting down for dinners without checking her emails, she began to feel a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't the same kind of achievement as signing a contract or landing a deal, but it felt just as important. She was reconnecting with herself. Jessica had always found it hard to relax, always felt like there was something more she should be doing. But now, she started to realize that slowing down wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of strength. And as she spent more time with her parents, she began to see the changes in them too. They were no longer just the parents who had overlooked her for years. They were people she could share her experiences with people she could rely on for support. It was as if a new chapter had begun in their relationship as well. Her father, in particular, had become someone she could confide in. He was no longer the distant figure he had been when she was younger. Instead, he was showing up for her, asking about her dreams, her future plans, and truly listening. And for the first time, Jessica realized that her success wasn't just about proving herself to others. It was about creating a life that felt right to her, a life where she could truly be present. One day, as Jessica sat across from her parents at a cafe, her mother looked at her with a soft smile. "You know, I've been thinking," she said, her voice warm and genuine. "I'm proud of the person you've become. You've always had so much potential, but you've really found your own path. I just wish I'd seen that earlier." Jessica felt a lump in her throat. Her mother's words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. For so long, she had craved her parents' approval. And now, for the first time, she realized she didn't need to prove anything to them. She had already proven it to herself. "Thanks, Mom," she said softly, her eyes welling up with emotion. "It means a lot to hear that." The conversation shifted to other topics, but the weight of her mother's words stayed with Jessica. She had built her own path, her own success, and in doing so, she had finally found peace with her past. As Jessica walked home that evening, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The world was no longer a place where she had to fight for recognition. She had earned it, not through constant achievement, but through learning to live authentically. She had learned to balance her personal and professional life, to find happiness in both. And as she looked ahead, she knew that this new journey wasn't just about continuing to build her career. It was about creating a life filled with love, connection, and purpose. The next morning, as she woke up to the sound of birds singing outside her window, Jessica smiled. She had come a long way, and the road ahead looked brighter than ever. Jessica sat at her desk, the sunlight filtering through the blinds as she reviewed the latest figures for her business. Her mind had been racing lately, filled with ideas, strategies, and goals. The growth of her company had exceeded her expectations, and yet, despite all the success, a part of her still longed for something deeper. It wasn't about the deals anymore. It wasn't about proving herself to anyone, not even her parents. It was about finding fulfillment, balance, and peace. That evening, as she sat down to dinner with her parents, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. They had come so far together, but she still felt like a part of her was holding back. "Jessica, how's the business going?" her father asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. "It's been good," Jessica replied, smiling. "Better than I ever imagined." "That's great to hear," her mother added. "We're so proud of you." Jessica felt the familiar warmth of her parents' approval, but this time, it didn't feel as important. She had already proved everything she needed to prove. It was no longer about the approval, it was about what came next for her. "I've been thinking," Jessica said, setting her fork down and looking her parents in the eyes. "About what's next. I've spent so much of my life focused on work, but I want to start focusing on the people I care about more." Her parents looked at each other, a little surprised. "What do you mean?" her father asked. Jessica took a deep breath. "I mean, I want to stop working every single day, all day. I've been running myself into the ground for years. I want to take more time for myself. Time for friends, for relationships, for the things that really matter." Her mother smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding. "Jessica, we've watched you work so hard. You've earned everything you have. But you're right, there's more to life than just the grind." Jessica nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. It felt good to finally say it out loud. "I'm going to start taking weekends off. I want to reconnect with the people who matter to me," she continued. "And I want to travel more. I've been so focused on building my career that I've missed out on experiences. I want to change that." Her father leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. "That sounds like a good plan, Jessica," he said. You deserve a break. You've worked hard for it. For the first time, Jessica felt like she wasn't just talking about her business. She was talking about her life, about how she wanted to live it moving forward. It wasn't about work anymore, it was about creating a life that felt complete, a life where she could be fully present in the moments that truly mattered. Over the next few weeks, Jessica put her plan into action. She took weekends off, disconnected from work, and started focusing on the things that brought her joy outside of her business. She reconnected with old friends, made time for family, and even took a weekend trip to the beach, a place she hadn't been in years. Each time she returned from a weekend away, she felt more refreshed, more centered, and more fulfilled. She was still committed to her business, of course, but she was no longer allowing it to consume every part of her life. One afternoon, as Jessica sat on the porch with a cup of tea, her phone rang. It was Natalie. "Hey, Jess," Natalie said, her voice upbeat. "How's everything going? I heard you've been taking some time off." "It's been amazing," Jessica replied, smiling. "I feel like I'm finally living the life I've always wanted, you know. Not just focused on work but on everything else too." "I'm so proud of you," Natalie said. "It's not easy to take a step back, but you've done it, and I can see how happy it's making you." Jessica nodded, feeling a sense of pride. "Yeah, it's been a big change. But I'm glad I did it. It's made me realize that I can still have everything I want. I don't have to choose between success and happiness. I can have both." As the days turned into weeks, Jessica continued to live with intention. She focused on her business when she was working, but she also made space for herself. She spent more time with her parents, rebuilding their relationship, and found herself appreciating the small moments, like cooking dinner together or just sitting and talking. She learned to say no to the things that didn't bring her joy, and yes to the experiences that made her feel alive. One evening, as Jessica sat with her parents, they talked about the future, about what they wanted out of life, what their dreams were. "I think we've all learned something in the past few months," her father said. "We've learned that success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you live, who you're with, and what you make of each day." Jessica smiled. "I couldn't agree more." That night, as she lay in bed, Jessica felt at peace. She had everything she needed: success, love, fulfillment, and she was ready for whatever came next. The road ahead was bright, and for the first time, she was truly ready to live it. She had found the balance between ambition and happiness, and she knew that no matter where life took her, she would be able to handle it with grace and confidence. As the months passed, Jessica's life continued to evolve in ways she never expected. Her business was thriving, her relationships had deepened, and she had found a sense of peace within herself that she hadn't known was possible. Yet, even with all her achievements, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something more to be done. She had spent so many years focused on proving herself, on building something that would be respected and admired, but now, for the first time, she started to wonder if success was enough. One quiet evening, as she sat by the window of her apartment, watching the sun set over the skyline, she thought about everything that had brought her to this point. She had achieved more than most could ever dream of, and yet, she felt the pull of something deeper. It wasn't about fame, wealth, or approval anymore. It was about purpose, and she realized that she wanted to do more with her life than just run a successful business. It was time to find a way to give back. Jessica had always believed in the power of helping others, but she had never been able to make it a priority in her busy life. She had always put her career first, telling herself that once she had reached a certain point, then she would have the time and resources to give back. But now, with her life more balanced and with a growing sense of fulfillment, she knew it was time to start making a difference. The next day, Jessica reached out to a few local charities, asking how she could get involved. She didn't have a clear idea of what she wanted to do, but she knew that she needed to contribute in a way that felt authentic to her. As she spoke to various organizations, Jessica realized that her skills in business could be used to help others. She could use her knowledge to help struggling businesses, especially women-owned startups, find the support they needed to grow and thrive. It was a perfect match, her expertise, their need. Over the next few weeks, Jessica began working with several charities, offering her time and resources to mentor young entrepreneurs. It wasn't always easy, balancing her existing commitments with her newfound passion for giving back, but every moment spent helping others felt like it filled a part of her that had been empty for so long. One of the women she mentored, a young entrepreneur named Sarah, had an idea for a sustainable fashion line but struggled to find the right investors. Jessica worked with Sarah to craft a business plan, connect with potential investors, and secure the funding she needed to get her business off the ground. Watching Sarah's dream come to life was one of the most rewarding experiences of Jessica's life. It wasn't just about the business success, it was about making a real impact on someone's life, helping them achieve something they thought was impossible. As the months went by, Jessica continued to mentor other women, watching their businesses grow and flourish. She had found a new sense of purpose, and it felt right. She wasn't just building her own success anymore. She was helping others build theirs, and in doing so, she was building a community of strong, empowered women who could support and inspire each other. One day, as Jessica sat in a coffee shop with Sarah, they talked about how far Sarah's business had come. "I can't believe how much things have changed in just a few months," Sarah said, her eyes shining with excitement. "I couldn't have done it without you, Jessica. You helped me make this dream a reality." Jessica smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. "You did the hard work, Sarah. I just gave you the tools to help you succeed." Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "No, you gave me something even more important. You gave me the belief that I could do it. I never thought I'd be sitting here, talking about my growing business. And now, it's happening. It's happening because of you," Jessica said, her voice filled with admiration. "You had the vision, and you made it happen. I'm just glad I could be part of that journey." As they talked, Jessica realized that this was what she had been searching for all along. It wasn't just about business success. It was about connecting with people, helping them realize their potential, and making a difference in the world. She had found a purpose that was bigger than herself, and it filled her with a sense of fulfillment that no amount of money or recognition ever could. In the months that followed, Jessica's life continued to change. She found new projects to work on, new people to help, and new ways to give back. Her business continued to thrive, but now, it was no longer her only focus. She had discovered a new passion, one that gave her the drive to keep pushing forward, not for her own success, but for the success of others. She had found a way to make her success matter, not just for herself, but for the world around her. As she sat in her office one afternoon, reflecting on everything that had happened, Jessica smiled. She had come a long way from the quiet, overlooked daughter. She had built a life that was meaningful, not just in terms of accomplishments, but in terms of the relationships she had built and the impact she had made on others. She wasn't just successful. She was fulfilled. And that, more than anything, was the greatest success of all. It had been almost a year since Jessica made the decision to step back from the constant hustle and take control of her life. The transformation wasn't just professional, it was personal. The once overlooked daughter, desperate to prove herself, had turned into a woman who knew her worth, who valued balance and fulfillment, not just success. But as much as she had grown, there was still a part of her that hadn't quite let go of her past. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Jessica found herself back at her old family home. The house had always held memories of family dinners, birthday celebrations, and the feeling of never quite measuring up. As she parked her car outside, Jessica took a deep breath. It had been months since she had spent any significant time with her parents, and although their relationship had improved, there was still something unspoken between them. The years of neglect, the subtle dismissal, they hadn't simply disappeared. But now, with a sense of purpose in her life and confidence in her heart, Jessica was ready for the next step. She walked to the front door and rang the bell. Her mother answered almost immediately, her face lighting up when she saw her. "Jessica, it's so good to see you," her mother said, her tone warm and welcoming. Come in, come in. Inside, the house felt different. The tension that once filled every corner seemed to have dissipated. There was no longer the undercurrent of judgment, no more unsaid expectations that Jessica should be something she wasn't. As they sat down for dinner, Jessica found herself relaxed in a way she hadn't been before. "You've changed, Jess," her father said after a while, looking at her thoughtfully. "In a good way." "I've been working on it," Jessica replied, smiling softly. "I've learned a lot over the past year. It's not just about the work anymore. It's about finding a balance, living with intention." Her father nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We've seen that. We've been following what you've been doing with your business, with mentoring others. It's impressive, Jessica." Jessica felt a twinge of pride, but also something else, a sense of closure. For so long, she had been desperate for their approval, for them to see her as worthy. But now, she knew she didn't need it. She had already proven herself to herself. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "But I think it's more than just the business now. It's about the impact I can have, the people I can help." Her mother smiled at her, a genuine smile. "We're proud of you, Jess. I don't think we said that enough when you were younger. But we see you now. We see how far you've come." It wasn't the first time her parents had expressed pride, but this time, it felt different. It felt real. Jessica realized that she had stopped seeking their approval a long time ago. What mattered now was how she felt about herself, and what she had built on her own. After dinner, Jessica and her parents sat together in the living room, reminiscing about old times. It was strange but comforting. The old wounds were healing, and with each conversation, they were finding common ground. "You've always been strong, Jessica," her father said, his voice quieter now. "You just didn't know it. We didn't know it either. I think I'm just finally learning to trust myself," she said, her voice soft but firm. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, plans for the holidays, new books her mother had been reading, the latest news about Emily. But Jessica found herself reflecting more than she expected. In the past, family dinners had always felt like a battleground, each word a reminder of her failure to live up to their expectations. But tonight, there was peace. Real peace. After a while, Jessica stood up, preparing to leave. "Thanks for dinner, Mom. It was really nice. Come by more often, Jess," her mother said, her voice laced with affection. "We miss you." Jessica nodded, a genuine smile on her face. "I will. I promise." As she drove home that night, Jessica felt a sense of contentment she hadn't felt in years. The distance she had once felt from her family had lessened, and with it, the weight of their expectations. She had done what she set out to do, she had built something meaningful, and she had done it on her own terms. But she had also rebuilt the connections that mattered most. She wasn't just the businesswoman anymore. She was a daughter, a friend, and most importantly, she was finally at peace with herself. The road ahead was still long, but now, Jessica was ready for it, with the strength to face whatever came her way. The quiet confidence she had gained over the past year had given her the foundation she needed to step into the future with grace and determination. As she pulled into her driveway and shut off the engine, she took a deep breath, letting the moment settle around her. The future was hers to shape, and she was ready to embrace it fully. This was only the beginning. As the months turned into a year, Jessica had settled into a rhythm she hadn't known she was capable of before. Her business was thriving, but it wasn't the only thing she cared about anymore. There was a balance in her life now, a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. She had found a way to prioritize the things that mattered most to her, family, friendships, personal growth, and the rest had fallen into place. Yet, there was still one thing that lingered in the back of her mind, Emily. Her sister. The one who had always been the golden child, the one who had always been praised while Jessica was left to find her own way. For a while, Jessica hadn't thought much about Emily. She had worked so hard to get to where she was that she had put thoughts of comparison aside. But now, as her life felt more complete, the space between them seemed to have grown. It wasn't that Emily had done anything wrong, it was just that the years of feeling overshadowed were still there, lurking in the background. It had been a while since they had spoken. Jessica had kept her distance, focusing on her own journey, but she knew that eventually, they would have to face each other again. The time felt right one afternoon when Jessica received a text from Emily. "Hey, it's been a while. Can we talk?" Jessica felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she also knew that this was something she couldn't avoid forever. She typed back, of course, when would be good. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop later that afternoon. As Jessica arrived, she saw Emily sitting by the window, her usual confident posture slightly subdued. When she looked up and saw Jessica, there was a brief moment of awkwardness before Emily gave a small wave. "Hey," Emily said, her voice quiet. "I wasn't sure how to start this." Jessica smiled and sat down across from her, offering a gentle nod. "Start wherever you want." Emily took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about things lately. About us. And about what's happened between us over the years." Jessica listened quietly, not wanting to interrupt, but feeling her heart beat faster with each word. "I know I've always had everything handed to me. I know it's hurt you, and I never realized just how much until recently," Emily continued, her voice soft but sincere. Jessica felt a knot form in her stomach. She had never expected this kind of conversation from Emily, not after everything that had happened. "I didn't see it then. I didn't see how hard it must have been for you, being the one who had to prove herself, always trying to get our attention, always working so hard. And I was too caught up in my own life to notice," Emily admitted, looking down at her coffee. Jessica took a deep breath, trying to absorb everything her sister was saying. "It wasn't easy," she said after a moment, her voice steady. "But I'm not that person anymore. I've worked hard to get to where I am, not just for them, but for me." Emily nodded, her eyes meeting Jessica's for the first time since they had sat down. "I know. And I've been jealous of that. Jealous of how you've found your own way, how you've built something meaningful. I've always been focused on what I could get, what I could achieve. But you've created a life that matters." Jessica didn't know what to say at first. It wasn't like Emily to admit something like this, to acknowledge Jessica's strength in such a raw, honest way. "I'm proud of you, Jess," Emily said quietly. "I just wanted you to know that." For a moment, the two sisters sat in silence, the weight of their conversation settling between them. It was strange, Jessica had always wanted Emily to see her, to recognize her worth, but hearing it now felt different. It felt like a turning point. "Thank you, Emily," Jessica said, her voice softer now. "It means a lot to hear that from you." Emily smiled faintly. "I've been trying to figure out how to fix things between us. I don't expect everything to be okay right away, but I want to try." Jessica thought for a moment before replying, "It's going to take time. But I think we're both in a place where we can work on it." Emily nodded, looking a little relieved. "I don't expect it to be easy, but I want to be better. For you. For us." Jessica smiled, feeling a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. "Me too." They spent the next hour talking about their lives, their work, and how things had changed over the years. It wasn't perfect, and Jessica knew that the road ahead wouldn't be without its challenges. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was seeing her sister not as the golden child, but as a person, someone who was struggling, just like she had been. As they parted ways, Jessica felt a quiet sense of peace. She knew that their relationship wasn't going to be fixed overnight, but it was a start. And for the first time in years, it felt like a good one. As she walked back to her car, Jessica felt the weight of the past years lifting from her shoulders. She had spent so much time trying to prove herself to others, but now, she was finally seeing herself for who she truly was, strong, capable, and ready to move forward. She had built her life on her own terms, and now, it was time to build new relationships, to heal old wounds, and to continue embracing the person she had become. As Jessica sat at her desk late one evening, she looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Life had changed so much in the past year. She had learned to embrace the balance between her work, her family, and her personal life. She had healed wounds with her parents and found a new sense of purpose in helping others. Yet, despite all the progress she had made, there was one thing that still lingered in the back of her mind: Emily. Their relationship had improved, but there was still that unspoken tension that passed between them that couldn't be completely erased overnight. It was a constant reminder of the years when Jessica had felt less than, overshadowed by Emily's success. But now, she wasn't that person anymore. She had worked hard to build something of her own, to create a life that was meaningful and fulfilling. And though their relationship had begun to heal, Jessica knew there was more to it. It was early Saturday morning when Jessica received another message from Emily. It was simple, just a question. "Can we meet up? I think we need to talk." Jessica hesitated for a moment. She had come so far, had worked so hard to let go of the past, but she knew this conversation was inevitable. She knew that to move forward, they needed to have this discussion. She quickly typed back, "Sure, when and where?" They decided to meet at a park near Jessica's apartment, a place where they had spent many afternoons as children. The familiarity of the location was comforting, but Jessica couldn't shake the nervousness building inside her. She arrived first, sitting on a bench near the pond, watching the ducks glide across the water. It wasn't long before Emily showed up, walking towards her with a hesitant smile. "Hey," Emily said quietly as she sat down beside her. "Hi," Jessica replied, offering a small smile in return. The air between them felt thick with unspoken words. "I've been thinking a lot," Emily began, her voice unsure. "About everything. About how I've treated you over the years." Jessica nodded, waiting for her to continue. "I know I've always been the one to take up space, to be the center of attention. And I know I hurt you with that. I didn't realize how much until now." Jessica listened carefully, feeling a mix of emotions. It was strange to hear Emily speak this way, to hear her acknowledge the years of tension between them. "I was so focused on my own success, on what I could achieve, that I never stopped to think about how it made you feel," Emily said, her eyes cast down. "And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for everything." Jessica took a deep breath. "Thank you, Emily. I don't think I realized how much I needed to hear that," she said softly. "I think I've spent so much time trying to prove myself to you and everyone else that I didn't stop to think about how much I was holding on to." Emily looked up at her, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I don't want to keep being the person who hurts you, Jess. I want to be there for you, not as your sister who always gets everything, but as someone who supports you, who wants the best for you." Jessica felt her chest tighten, the weight of the past years lifting just a little. "I've learned a lot too," Jessica said, her voice steady. "I spent so much time trying to be someone I wasn't, trying to compete to be seen. But I've come to realize that I don't need to prove myself to anyone anymore. I've done the work for me, not for anyone else." There was a moment of silence between them, and for the first time in years, it felt like they were both speaking the same language. "I want to try, Jess," Emily said quietly. "I know it's going to take time, but I want us to be better. To be sisters, not just people who happen to share the same family." Jessica smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "I think we can do that. It won't be easy, but we've both come a long way." They sat there in silence for a few more minutes, the sound of the water calming the tension in the air. As they stood to leave, Emily turned to Jessica. "I'm proud of you, Jess. I always have been, even if I didn't show it." "I know," Jessica said, her voice soft. "And I'm proud of you too, Emily. I think we're both figuring out who we are, and that's enough for me." As they hugged goodbye, Jessica felt a sense of peace settle over her. It wasn't about perfection or trying to fix everything all at once. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and moving forward. Jessica had come a long way from the woman she had been just a year ago, the one who had felt invisible and unworthy. She had built a life of purpose, of balance, and of meaning. And now, as she continued to heal her relationships and find new ways to give back, Jessica knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in her life. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time, she felt ready for whatever came next. As Jessica walked through the doors of her office, she felt the familiar buzz of excitement. It had been over a year since she had truly embraced the changes in her life, and things were continuing to move forward. The business was stronger than ever, and while she had once defined herself by her achievements, she now understood that success wasn't just about the numbers or the deals, it was about living authentically and making a difference in the lives of others. She had already accomplished so much, but now, she wanted to take her impact even further. She had spent the past few months working closely with several women entrepreneurs, helping them grow their businesses and supporting them with the same mentorship that had changed her life. She had come to realize that the work she was doing was far more fulfilling than she had ever expected. It wasn't just about building something for herself anymore, it was about helping others build their dreams. It was a Tuesday morning when Jessica received a call from one of her men's, Maria, who had recently launched a sustainable fashion brand. Maria was ecstatic. "Jessica, you're not going to believe this. We just got a major deal with a retail chain. They want to carry our line in over 50 stores across the country." Jessica smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "That's incredible, Maria. I knew you had it in you. I'm so proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without your help," Maria said, her voice full of gratitude. "You've been there every step of the way, and it's all because of you." Jessica paused for a moment, taking in Maria's words. It was a simple gesture, but the impact it had was immeasurable. She had been able to guide Maria, not just as a business advisor, but as a friend, someone who genuinely cared about her success. It wasn't about the accolades or the recognition, it was about the joy of seeing others thrive. As the call ended, Jessica sat back in her chair and reflected on her own journey. She had once been consumed by the need for approval, the desire to prove herself to her family, to her peers. But now she knew that the most important validation came from within. She had built something meaningful, and that was enough. Later that week, Jessica attended a networking event for women entrepreneurs, a space where she had once felt like an outsider. But now, as she stood in the crowded room, exchanging ideas and stories with others, she realized just how far she had come. She wasn't just a participant anymore, she was a leader, someone others looked up to. The conversation shifted to new business trends, and Jessica shared insights about sustainability, conscious consumerism, and the growing demand for ethical business practices. She spoke with passion, and for the first time in a long while, she realized that she was no longer trying to convince anyone of her worth. She simply was. As the evening came to a close, Jessica felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had found her place in the world, not just in terms of her career, but in terms of her purpose. She had built a legacy, not one defined by the awards or recognition she received, but by the lives she had touched and the positive change she had sparked. Back at home that night, Jessica reflected on everything she had learned. She had discovered the true meaning of success, not as something to be achieved, but as something to be experienced, something to be shared. She had learned to embrace every part of her journey, the challenges, the triumphs, and the moments of quiet growth. And as she sat in her living room, the soft glow of the city lights filtering through the windows, Jessica smiled. She knew that this was just the beginning. There were more people to help, more lives to touch, and more dreams to be realized. And this time, she wasn't just chasing success for herself, she was helping others do the same. As Jessica continued to watch her business thrive, she realized that the true reward wasn't just in the financial success or the growing number of clients, it was in the relationships she had built and the impact she was having on others. The sense of fulfillment she had once searched for in accomplishments now seemed to reside in the connections she made, in the lives she helped change. One afternoon, while sitting in her office reviewing the latest reports, she received a call from Sarah, one of the women she had mentored. "Jessica, you won't believe it," Sarah's voice crackled with excitement. "Our first store just opened, and the response has been incredible. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done to help me get here." Jessica smiled, feeling the same sense of pride she had felt when Maria had landed her big deal. "I'm so happy for you, Sarah. You did the hard work, and I'm just glad I could help along the way." But it's not just that, Jessica. The media is starting to take notice. "We've had a few interviews lined up, and I honestly don't know how we got here so fast," Sarah said, her voice brimming with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jessica paused for a moment, letting the weight of Sarah's words sink in. She had once been in Sarah's position, looking for guidance, trying to navigate the complexities of building something from scratch. Now, to be on the other side, helping others achieve their dreams, felt like a natural progression, but it was also deeply fulfilling. "You've got this, Sarah," Jessica said, her voice steady. "You've always had it in you. Now it's about taking that momentum and using it to grow. I believe in you. I won't let you down, Jessica." "I promise," Sarah replied before the call ended. Jessica leaned back in her chair, reflecting on everything that had led her to this moment. Her journey had been a long and winding road, full of challenges and moments of doubt. But now, she understood that the most important thing wasn't about proving herself to anyone else. It was about using her success to help others rise. Over the next few weeks, Jessica threw herself into her mentorship program with renewed passion. She worked closely with a group of aspiring women entrepreneurs, offering guidance, resources, and most importantly, her time. The connections she had made along the way had become not just professional relationships but personal ones as well. She wasn't just teaching them how to run businesses, she was teaching them how to trust themselves, how to believe in their own abilities, and how to embrace the challenges that would inevitably come their way. One evening, after a long day of meetings and planning sessions, Jessica sat in her living room with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. It was a message from her parents. "We're so proud of you, Jessica. We've been talking, and we realize just how much you've accomplished. We should have told you that earlier, but we're proud of the woman you've become." Jessica's heart swelled at the words. It wasn't the first time they had said they were proud of her, but this time, it felt different. She had earned their respect, not by fulfilling their expectations, but by being true to herself and building a life that was meaningful to her. She didn't need their approval anymore to feel validated. Still, hearing them say it felt like the final piece of a puzzle she hadn't known was missing. It was a moment of closure, a moment where she truly felt like she had reconciled her past with her present. That evening, she thought back to the days when she had longed for her parents' praise, when she had been desperate to be seen. Now, she realized that the only validation she truly needed was the one she gave herself. And she had done it, she had built something that was hers. As the weeks continued to pass, Jessica's business grew even more successful, but so did her sense of purpose. She began speaking at conferences, sharing her story, and offering her insights to those who wanted to follow in her footsteps. Her words resonated with the people she spoke to because they were real. They were grounded in the struggles she had faced and the lessons she had learned. And as she continued to pour herself into her work, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She wasn't just a businesswoman anymore. She was a mentor, a leader, a woman who had found her voice and was using it to help others find theirs. One evening, as Jessica sat at her desk preparing for a speaking engagement the next day, she received another message. This one was from Emily. "I just wanted to check in. I've been thinking a lot about what you said when we last talked. I'm proud of you, Jess. I know we've had our issues, but I want you to know that I see you. I really see you." Jessica smiled as she read the message. The relationship with Emily had come a long way. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. For the first time, they were both able to see each other as individuals, not as competitors, not as the sisters they used to be, but as people who had grown, who had changed. As she finished reading, Jessica felt a deep sense of peace. She had worked hard for everything she had, but she had also learned the importance of connection, of helping others, and of living authentically. The future was still full of possibilities, and Jessica was more than ready for whatever it held. She wasn't just building a business, she was building a life, one that was full of purpose, growth, and the power to make a real difference in the world. As Jessica continued to build her life on her own terms, she realized that the work she had done to help others was more important than anything she had ever accomplished for herself. Each day she spent mentoring, guiding, and supporting women in business, she felt the deep satisfaction of knowing she was making a lasting impact. There was something truly powerful about helping others succeed. It was not just about passing on business knowledge or offering advice, it was about empowering people to believe in themselves, to see the potential they didn't always recognize. And in doing so, Jessica had found that the most meaningful success was the one that extended beyond the personal. It was about lifting others up and watching them thrive. One day, as Jessica walked into a meeting with a new group of young entrepreneurs, she felt a surge of excitement. This was where she truly felt alive, among people who shared her passion, her drive, and her willingness to make a difference. The conversations flowed easily, filled with laughter, ideas, and inspiration. Jessica couldn't help but smile as she realized how far she had come. From the quiet, overlooked daughter to a confident, successful woman who had found a community of like-minded individuals. It was a far cry from the isolation she had once felt. As the meeting ended, Jessica received a text message from her mother. It was simple, yet filled with meaning. "I just wanted to say again how proud we are of you. You've built something incredible, and we love you." Jessica paused for a moment, feeling a wave of emotion wash over her. The approval she had once longed for was no longer something she needed to seek. She had created her own path, and in doing so, she had earned their respect, not through their standards, but through her own. The relationship with her parents had evolved into something more genuine. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. They had seen her, truly seen her, for the first time. She had earned her place not just in her family, but in the world. Reflecting on everything she had accomplished and the relationships she had repaired, Jessica knew that this journey wasn't just about success or recognition, it was about love, connection, and finding the courage to be herself. The future was bright, not because of the things she had achieved, but because of the people she had helped along the way. The deeper she went into her work, the more she realized that the true essence of success lay in the connections we make and the ways in which we support and love one another. This story isn't just about career growth, it's about the transformative power of self-belief, forgiveness, and the importance of lifting others as we climb. When we are able to embrace our flaws, let go of past hurts, and learn to give without expecting anything in return, we create the space for true love and connection to blossom. In the end, it's not the titles or achievements that define us, it's the love we share and the ways we inspire others to believe in their own potential. Jessica's story is a reminder that no matter how far we've come, it's the bonds we build with others, and the way we love and uplift each other that truly matter.